Well, it looks like that we are live. So welcome to the live broadcast. My name is Angeline Constantinu, and I am the founder and CEO of Let's Break the Silence with Angeline. So welcome to our live broadcast. I am so excited that I will be bringing on a special guest. Her name is Yvonne, and I was a guest on her special podcast about 2 months ago, and the name of her podcast is Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Relationships. So just as, Yvonne, she is a domestic abuse survivor, and so am I, and we have similar stories. So I cannot wait until Yvonne shares her story. So if you are watching this live in my private Facebook group, we are live right now in my private Facebook group, which is Domestic Violence for Healing and Empowerment, and also on my YouTube channel, which is Let's Break the Silence with Angeline. So I am so excited to introduce Yvonne. So let me tell you a little bit about Yvonne before I bring her on. So Yvonne is a gifted writer, inspirational speaker, and a podcaster who hosts various workshops centered around personal development. Through her company, You Are Dynamic LLC, Yvonne's passions are to educate others about the horrific pandemic of domestic violence and to help women delete their negative life patterns and show them that God is the creator of everything, loves and cherishes them for who they are as individuals. And I really, really, really love Yvonne's mission. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Yvonne on. Hi, Yvonne. How are you?
Hi, Angeline. I'm great.
Well, you look great. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be a guest on my podcast. And what I always ask all my guests, what is time right now where you are?
Right now it's 5:12 p.m.
You're in Chicago. That's right.
I'm in a suburb right outside of Chicago.
Wow. Wow. Geez. And I was in Chicago 2 months ago.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was on a business trip. So yes, it's unfortunate that we couldn't meet at that time, but I think, things happen. So, but I was a special guest on Yvonne's podcast, which is Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Relationships. And the link will be posted in the show notes. In fact, all of Yvonne's links will be posted in the show notes. So right now, I'm excited because the listeners want to know, and for the people who are watching on YouTube or the people who will be watching the replay, if you're catching this live right now, by the way, hashtag live in the comments, let us know where you are from so we can give you a shout out. And if you are watching the replay on YouTube or in my private Facebook group, please hashtag replay. So who is Yvonne?
Yvonne is, first of all, and I have to say this, Yvonne is a follower of Jesus Christ. That's first and foremost. Second, Yvonne is a podcaster. Third, Yvonne's an author. And fourth, Yvonne is really, really, really passionate about this topic on domestic violence because I am a survivor of domestic violence. Now,
For how long have you been?
We're going to dig into that because I am divorced now for going on 6 years, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper because we're going to go into the abusive relationships I had prior to.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes.
Yes, absolutely. Be as brutal and honest and transparent as you would like to be, because that's what people are looking for. They're looking for that authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that mess that you were in, that pain that you went through. And I can imagine that was grueling. I can just imagine. So what happened?
And I'm smiling right now, right? Because I'm on the other side. But this smile is because, first of all, having a relationship with the Lord is the only way I got through. That's the only way I made it through, by prayer, supplication, and with thanksgiving, and with the support group. And the support group was vital. So if I can just go back a little bit, because I want to lay some groundwork. It has nothing to do with where I am right now because I have made it through right now. But I am not going to use what I experienced as an excuse.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you why. Now, I grew up witnessing domestic violence. It's all I knew. My parents never abused us physically, but we watched it. We witnessed it daily. So we thought, my sister and I, that relationships were this way. That's what's modeled in front of you. They say the first 7 years of your life can determine the direction you will take. So if
Mm,
you grew up watching and witnessing domestic violence and having that mirrored in front of you, you think that's the way relationships should be. It is not the way relationships should be, but it's what I grew up watching. So as a result, and I'm going to leave a big gap in there because as a result, when I did start dating, as a result of witnessing domestic violence, I had no emotional support. I didn't know what a relationship was supposed to look like. I didn't know how to have a relationship. I didn't know how to be in a relationship. I didn't know that I had feelings. I didn't know that I had emotions. I didn't know that they counted. And then when they start surfacing, I didn't know what to do with them because I didn't have that guidance. My parents were doing their own thing and they didn't have time for us.
right.
Fast forward into high school and I'm dating. I'm dating because I'm looking for that attention. I'm looking for that affection. I'm looking for some love. Because even though I didn't have it, I still craved it. Now, that's something that I had a hard time understanding. If you never experience something, how do you know something's missing? It was the intuition that's built on the inside of us that something's missing. This is not how life should be. So I go into dating and I'm dating abusive boys at that time. You know, we were teens. So there were boys. And my first husband was my high school sweetheart.
Mm,
He was my first everything, the first person I ever had sex with, the first person I was in a serious relationship with. And then we got married at 18 and 19, which is scary within itself.
that's scary, right? I had a high school friend who did the same thing. At
Yes,
18, 19, they got married. I mean, that's so young.
it's young. And I
Yeah.
didn't find out until later that we were both from abusive backgrounds. So we brought that into the marriage.
Okay.
So we have two knocks against us. We are 18 and 19, don't have a clue what we're doing. And he was my first. So I didn't know what I was doing. And I was a spoiled rotten brat who didn't understand that I had emotions and they counted. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this young marriage outside of the abuse. So can you imagine bringing your past into a marriage that's already starting off on the wrong? Yes, you're shaking your head. So we're both bringing that into a marriage and abuse. That is where I experienced verbal abuse from my ex-husband now. And I'll say this because I didn't think about it until later down the road. When I was pregnant in a different country, we were married. I was pregnant in a different country. He kicked me out of the house twice
What?
because this was his house
Okay.
and he made the rules.
Mm, okay.
I, I left. I left that relationship, but I did not take the time to heal before I got into the next one.
Okay.
Right? So it was time. I didn't just jump right into a relationship, the next one, but what I did do was didn't get healed. So after we got divorced and while we're going through the divorce and after that, I never took the time to heal. I never took the time to stop and look at Yvonne. Never did.
Right. You had like you didn't give yourself time to heal and love on yourself.
I didn't know what that was. What do you mean love on
Yeah,
yourself?
but you know why? Because we were conditioned as children not to love ourselves, right?
Or even what love is. What is love?
Exactly.
No. So that was mistake number 15,072
Okay.
in hindsight. So never, ever jump from relationship to relationship without stopping, looking at yourself, taking the time and
Mhm.
finding out what it is you need. I didn't know what I needed. What? What? Because in church, I was taught that you do whatever your husband tells you to do because you have to please him. In
Mm.
church, I was taught that there's no such thing as rape in marriage. Yes. In church, I was taught that the man is the head, and so he makes the decisions. You be a good wife. You take care of things at home and the kids. That's what I was taught. I don't know if anybody else was taught that, but I'm sure there are a lot of
Wow.
women who were taught that.
Wow.
So imagine that carrying all of the mess into the marriage, being abused in the marriage, getting divorced. And now I'm out of the marriage and I'm still looking for love. I'm still looking to belong. I'm not looking at Yvonne. Okay. And I didn't learn that I should have done that until down the road. So I still don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. I still have no idea. So I take all that baggage into the next relationship. That next relationship was worse than the first one.
And I've heard stories from other women. They've told me the same thing. The second one was worse than the first one.
In the
That is
second
because
one,
that you didn't get a chance to heal. There was no time. Why were you looking for love? What was
I was still missing. I was still craving. I was still wanting. I was told that you're nothing unless you're married and your marriage is working. So what did I want to do? I wanted to be married. But not just that, Angeline, I wanted to be married to a Christian man. And at that point, I didn't even know what a Christian man was. The reality of a Christian man is one who loves the Lord. He loves the Lord more than he loves you, because if he loves the Lord more than he loves you, he's going to take care of you, because that's what God has in his heart. I was looking for that. I was looking to be respected, loved, cherished. I was looking for Yvonne to matter.
Right.
I am not pointing back at my parents, because at this point I'm making adult decisions, but I'm making adult decisions from pain and lack, not from a whole person.
Right. Right.
And I want the listeners to get this. So important. So important. When you make these decisions in between or before you get into a relationship, you need to understand some things. Like, you have boundaries. What a boundary is. Why should a boundary even matter? Your thoughts matter. How you feel matters. Your emotions matter. But if you don't know that, that's what you will attract to you. And that's what I attracted to me.
Right. Exactly. 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 Because what you put out there in the world, in the universe, to God, you're going to attract, right? I mean, it's just going to come back. You're going to attract those type of people in your life, abusers. And I know for myself, my therapist actually told me, like, during my therapy, I think I had talked about this on your podcast, like, she taught me how to set boundaries. Like, this was like right in the transition of my divorce, setting boundaries even before I filed for divorce, setting healthy boundaries. And, those type of people, they don't like that. Like, they don't
I'm
like
glad you said that. Those type of people, because those are not your average people.
Right.
They're not. And I will share, as a part of this, I'm going to share what happened down the road. So in this next relationship, which was worse, I should have never, ever got in that relationship. It was with a man who was older than me. He was more schooled and he was street smart. And I was not street smart. I was not. I was attracted to him because he had a good job. He had a good car. And I thought he liked me. Well, a person who likes you does not cheat on you out the gate. A person who likes you does not give you an engagement ring out of duress because he knows that you guys are going to break up.
Right.
And a person who cares for you significantly or who wants you really in their lives, they aren't going to put you second or third or fourth. They're going to make sure that you know that you matter to them. They don't want you out of greed. He told me down the road, I just had to have Yvonne. That's what he told me after we had a post-relationship conversation. But in this relationship, we got married also. Marriage number two.
Okay.
And still going from the fact that you need to be married. That's my Christian background.
Right. Just like me at Greek Orthodox, you have to be married. And I know the whole deal. So
you know what I'm talking about.
And I broke generational curses, by the way. So
exactly.
Yeah, I broke generational curses. So that was the end of that. And I'm happily single for 15 years.
Happily single. I have a podcast titled How to Be Happily Single.
I'm going to listen to that episode.
Definitely. But going into this marriage, my mom told me she didn't like him. I didn't listen.
Right.
And in my first marriage, I had a son. And this second marriage, he was pretty good to my son. That's what I looked at the time. So I'm like, wow. So he's got a good job. He's got a good car. You know, he's a good man, I thought. Now, a good man to whose standards,
Mm.
right? Because I didn't have standards. I just knew I wanted to be married and I knew I was fornicating. And the Bible says we should not be doing that. I'm just being really raw with you and I'm just putting it out there. I also want you listeners to know that when you fornicate, when you're having sex with someone, I consider it, Yvonne considers it a soul tie. You have gotten into this relationship, but is it really? You really don't know if you look at the definition of relationship or a healthy one, but you're having sex. I think having sex, no, let me rephrase that. I know that having sex really muddies the water. You're not thinking straight.
That's true.
Because now your emotions are totally involved. For a woman, it's definitely we're giving ourselves. It's not just, oh, I had sex with him. It's, okay, this person really loves me. You know, he cares for me. He's giving me everything. No. Keep your underwear up and your dress down. It's not worth it. This man, he gave me the picture of what a good Christian man would be, but he was not. And the difference with your mouth versus your actions speak louder than words.
That's true.
So in a nutshell, and I'm going to be a little graphic and vulgar right here. I used to couldn't do this, but I want the listeners to get it. As I was married to this man, we lived in his mother's basement. We didn't have our own place at first. So one day his mom heard us arguing. She came downstairs and she had to get him off of me.
Oh my God.
We went through, it really wasn't a marriage because he told me, you don't punch the clock with me, meaning that his money is his money. Now we both work and the money should be commingled, but in his mind, that was his money.
See?
Okay. Another thing, because I was thought to please my husband, he sodomized me. And he claims that he didn't rape me, but he did.
Oh my goodness.
From the sodomy, separate, and many times. And I went along with it. I fought him off at first because this is not something that I do. It really made me feel less than. It made me feel dirty. You know, you're my husband and you know I don't like this, but you're going to put your penis in my mouth.
Oh my gosh.
I told you. And I'm pulling away and backing away, but the nice way to say it is sodomize.
Okay.
And rape, because there was many times he's pulled out the tampon. So I, on my period, bleeding, and because I'm the wife, he will pull out the tampon. Different things like that happen. And they happened over and over and over and over and over. And I left several times and went back.
Did you report it to the police?
The police would come to the house.
Okay.
His mom's house. That's because that's where we live.
That's what
But understand, this was maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago. In those days, it wasn't considered abuse. In those days, they told the man, go outside and take a walk.
Right. You know? That's like they did that with my ex. But right before I was ready to move, you know what they told him? Go out for 2 hours.
Yeah, and cool off.
While I packed my bags and I actually went to a hotel to stay for the last 2 nights. I was just like, because I was packing everything.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't let me in the house. I had to call the New York State Police. They came to the house. They took the report and they ordered him to leave for 2 hours, not the whole night. But I didn't want to stay there because I told them that I feared for my safety because I was moving. And that's when the danger happens, like right before you leave. I mean, it was a scary time, but God was with me. And I went back to the house 2 days later and the movers were there. I had a witness there and the move went smoothly. I turned in the keys. I never looked back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I did inevitably. So I'm like, okay, if we're going to make a go of this, now this is me still not understanding that what this man is doing to me is abuse. I'm still willing to work in our marriage and work things out. He was out cheating on me the whole time. All right. So I still don't get it. And understand the sad part about it was my son went through this whole thing with me. He was little then.
Oh. And how old was your son?
So he was, I want to say he was 5.
Oh, geez.
So he's going through this with me. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe if we got out on our own, we moved into our own place, we don't live with his mom, that things will get better. Okay, again, from hindsight, they don't get better. I just need you guys to understand that. they get worse.
Mm.
And that's what they did. They got worse. We move out. So I go look for the apartment, put the money down on the apartment, and I was like $30 short. And I told him, I said, we need $30. And you know what he said? Well, you're going to have to find it. You're going to have to figure out a way to get the $30. Okay. I found a way to get the $30.
Okay, good.
But even something like that, you're going to move into this place with me and you can't come up with $30? Okay. And again, I'm still trying to make this work. Glaring signals were happening during this whole time frame that I was going through this. God was trying to open my eyes. Every week at work, I would pass out every week. And we didn't know what it was until one day I passed out. They came and got me, took me to the ER, and they did a glucose fasting. And they found out that it was hypoglycemia.
Wow.
But the hypoglycemia is kicked off by stress. It's kicked off by,
Right.
yes, by you're not eating the way you should.
That's
I
right.
was so stressed out that I would pass out every week, and I didn't understand why. And it was because I was in this abusive relationship, abusive marriage. But I didn't get it. God was still trying to talk to me. I wasn't listening. I was not listening. So I think we stayed there maybe 6 months. Maybe it wasn't even 6 months. But every weekend he would go out without me. Okay.
Okay.
I'm still in the marriage. I'm still there, still hoping against hope. Listen, ladies and men who are being abused, there is no hope against hope. I'm going to stick my neck out and say, because it happened to me and many other ladies that I've talked to and taught and coached, it doesn't get better. I need you to get this. It's not going to get better. So I was this tall at that point. I was less than less, but I didn't focus on Yvonne. I still wanted my marriage to work because people told me it wasn't going to work. And because who wants to give up on their second marriage?
Yes, I hear what you're saying. I understand. But, we can't make them change. And if they want to change, that's great. But if they're not, I always tried to make him change, but it wasn't working. So I just said,
No.
about it.
I had to come to the conclusion that we can't control anyone. We have no control over anyone but ourselves.
That's true.
And when a person shows you who they are, they can tell you all they want to, but when they show you who they are, listen, watch their actions as opposed to what their words are.
I agree with that.
100%. The last night I spent at that apartment, the night before I left, I refused to sleep in the same bed with him. Not have sex, but I just refused to sleep in the same bed with him. Well, he wasn't having that. So he picked me up and he hogtied my legs and my hands and he dragged me down the hallway screaming. I'm screaming. Not a neighbor came.
Oh.
But he's dragging me down the hallway by my legs and just like you hogtie a pig to the bedroom.
Oh my gosh.
So I can sleep in the same room. It wasn't even about sex. And that night is when I made up my mind to leave. So I waited until he went to work early the next morning.
Right.
I packed up. I didn't tell him. So that's another mistake a lot of people make. They tell the abuser that they're going to leave. I filed for divorce, or I'm leaving you tomorrow, or they get the runs of the mouth and they tell the abuser their plans. And sometimes when we do that, we end up dead.
That's true. That's true.
Sometimes when we do that, we end up maimed, so much so that we're unable to walk or talk. Some get acid thrown on them. Some get legs and arms cut off. Some get hurt so bad they wish they were dead. So you never, ever tell the abuser what your plans are. That's one of the most dangerous times, like you just said. That's one of the most dangerous times that you have in that relationship. So you have to make your escape plan before you leave, unless you're in immediate danger. You have to just go. Even if you have to leave with the clothes on your back and your children in your arms, get out. There's help. So I wrote him a little note. I put it on the door. In 4 hours, I rented a U-Haul truck. I got a 2-bedroom apartment, packed up by myself. I was on a pure adrenaline. I packed up the 2-bedroom apartment. I took my son to daycare. And within 4 hours, I had the truck back.
Oh my gosh.
And my son was still in daycare. So I had time. Thank God I had somewhere to go. Because I, at that point, refused to have my son grow older in this environment.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
So I'm sure there's worse stories out there. I'm sure there's people who have been through worse. But I didn't learn my lesson, Angeline.
No, you didn't learn your lesson. What happened?
I still didn't take the time in between my next relationship.
Okay.
I didn't take the time. I can't even emphasize that enough. Whatever you're doing, you do not have to be in a relationship. You do not have to be married, but you do have to survive for your sake and for your kids' sake.
Right.
Being in a relationship is not a necessity. It might be something that you want, but you don't need to be in an abusive relationship.
True.
You need to be in a relationship with you first. I still didn't learn that lesson. I had to go through therapy. I had to go through years of therapy.
Wow. How many years do you remember?
I don't.
Okay.
I know it was years only because my son had grown older and I didn't even focus on that time frame. But I do remember going through extensive therapy. It was 5 days a week, 7 hours a day.
So a lot of,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And I found out a lot of childhood trauma in that. I found out a lot of things that I hadn't even thought about as to how did you get to where you are and why aren't you where you need to be? But what I don't want the listeners to do, like I did, is to beat up on themselves, to begin to hate themselves, to have bitterness towards yourself. And I don't want you to go like I did, from abusive relationship to abusive relationship into a narcissistic relationship.
Exactly.
That's what I did.
Don't beat yourself up. And I agree with you. I agree. Give yourself grace.
If you don't, like I didn't, you're going to end up right back where you were. And that's not where you want to go. I didn't know what narcissism was either. It's still abuse, but it's a whole different level.
It is. Narcissism. You have no idea. I mean, I see
Yes, I do.
videos and I'm like, whoa.
No. My next relationship was with a narcissist.
Oh, boy.
So my whole point in telling people about this, my whole point is for you not to be like me. Don't be like me. Don't go from relationship to relationship to relationship, not stopping in between, not looking at yourself in the mirror, not understanding who you are, not finding out what your desires are, not even knowing what love is, or not even having a clue as to what a healthy relationship is, because you don't even have one with yourself.
That's right.
And it took years to get to that point, and therapy. Years therapy, and of course, God. I can't say that enough either, because that's why I'm still here today. I'm here today. God has allowed me to go through those things. He didn't say, Yvonne, go in that abusive relationship. He didn't say that. He said, okay, Yvonne, I still love you and I'm right there with you, despite the fact that you're making these choices. So we make these choices all the time, and we're not even cognizant of why. What's underneath those choices? What's underneath that decision you're making? And why, Yvonne, do you continue to end up with the same man, just with a different name?
Wow.
I don't know how else to put it. This is what I did. I'm not in a relationship now. I'm not married now, and I'm good.
Oh, good for you.
I am. There were other relationships after that. Yes, there were.
Okay.
And right now, I don't have a need. I don't have a I have to be. I don't have a I want to be married. I don't have that desire. It's just not there. But what I did do was I wrote my first book.
I want you to talk about your book.
Out from the Depths of Pain. Love Doesn't Have to Hurt. I wrote this book.
I love it.
Going through the divorce, going through abuse. And in this book, she came out from the depths of pain. I'm not going to spoil how she did it, but I am going to read a brief synopsis. And this is from the book, Out from the Depths of Pain. She didn't listen. Her best friend, Tamar, tried talking to her. Situations occurred to warn her. She ignored her own intuition and those glaring red flags.
Wow.
But the invitations were mailed. The out-of-town guests had confirmed their flight and hotel reservations, and the honeymoon suite was paid in full.
Oh, my goodness.
From the honeymoon on, Leah St. John's life became a living nightmare. But by the grace of God, a way of escape presents itself. as she goes deep into and then comes out from the depths of pain. This is, I have to say, it's a good book because it really depicts the triumph of a lady who went through, as I said, pain
Love.
in the abusive relationship. Another good thing that came out of that is my coloring book. Trust God,
Oh, I
keep
love
calm,
that.
color, and journal.
See, I love that.
And this coloring book is actually an activity book. It's for teens and adults. It's got pages in here where you can journal. It's got scripture in here. It's got encouraging Bible verses in here. And this is how I came about doing this. Going through divorce, I was sitting on the couch one day and the enemy came up to me and he said, "You should go kill yourself." This was on Christmas Eve one year.
Oh, no. See, the enemy's going to try and strike. Remember, right before we started this podcast, we were having technical issues. I'm like, no, the enemy is not going to win. The enemy is not going to silence us, period.
And he tried to. But that night, Angeline, I jumped up so fast off the couch. I ran in the shower and I tried to scrub all of that pain off of me, all of those lies the enemy was trying to tell me, because he literally could have taken me out that night because he told me I should go kill myself. Thank God, of course, that didn't happen.
Thank God.
I spent hours coloring. It soothed me so.
It's therapy. I mean, yes.
Therapeutic, cathartic. And I went from coloring with dark colors to bright colors. That was my healing. I went from mandalas to coloring people, which my young lady right here.
Yeah. I love
some things that I've colored with colored pencils.
That's beautiful.
During my journey. Yes. So I said, well, if I can color, other people might get something from this too when they're going through. I'm going to create a coloring book.
There you go.
And that's what I did. I created.
I love it. Trust God, keep calm. And that's soothing.
Both of my books, or I actually have more books, but 7 of them, but they're through Amazon. You can get them through Amazon. And
I was just going to ask.
Put that link. Put that link in the show notes too. I'll put that.
Let me mark that down. So the link for the Amazon for the books will be in the show notes.
Yes, definitely. Okay. And when you go from the pain, when you go from misery and then you take and you do something with it. So now I'm teaching people about domestic violence. Now I'm having classes at different churches, teaching them about domestic violence. Now I'm going and doing seminars and workshops on domestic violence. So even though I went through what I went through, God still turned it around for good. Romans 8:28.
I love that verse.
Yes, he works all things together for the good for those who love him and who are called according to his purpose.
Exactly.
So there is hope. And the way that I made it through was to develop an even closer and deeper relationship with the Lord. So every morning, I go through my devotion with the Lord. Every morning, before I get out of bed, I'm reading my scripture and I'm praying.
That's what I do too. That's what I do. I pray to the Lord. I don't look at my phone.
So you start the day off that way and he's walking with you. So he walked with me through this journey of domestic violence. And I'm able to talk about it, Angeline, because I wasn't before. I was ashamed. I felt guilt.
Right.
Who wants to tell others their dirty laundry?
That's true. That's true, because we feel ashamed and embarrassed.
Ashamed and embarrassed. But if I allowed that, then I would have stayed bitter. And people wouldn't have been able to purchase my books. Now, I did do another book, Angeline. It's called Seasons of Evil Spiritual Forces. All of these will be on that link. Good. But in Seasons, it's called Seasons of Evil Spiritual Forces. I don't have any more, so I have to purchase some more.
Oh,
but in that book, I show how Satan gets in the minds of married couples and tells them what to say, how to act.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write that book because at the same time that I was going through this, I know the enemy was in my ear and he was in my ex's ear, because the enemy does not want marriages to prevail. He does not want people to stay married. He wants to break up marriages. He wants people's lives to fall apart. So that's another book that I did write. And there's others that when they go to the link, they'll be able to see all the others.
All right, good. Perfect. Which brings me to, where can people find you? Because I know that you have, can people email you?
It's Yvonne the author at gmail.com.
Okay, we got that. Okay. And you're on Facebook.com.
Correct. There
Facebook.
we go.
Okay.
Yes.
See, I got it already. The only
Me
thing I did
too.
not do was LinkedIn. So now,
We
as
can put
far
that
as
in
the
there also.
Amazon books, do you have a separate link for that, or can you?
It's a separate link,
Okay, good. Good.
and I will definitely give you that. I can put that in there too.
In the private chat, yes.
And what I do is I write under my maiden name all of my books. I wanted to honor my dad. And
Oh,
so I use my maiden name under all of my books. And I'm definitely going to put that in the chat right now. And then that will be in your show notes also.
all right, good, good. Because I want to make sure that we put that in your show notes. Okay, good, good.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me.
So while you're doing that, I really wanted to focus. And I wanted to bring, I know we're coming to an end, but can I just
Sure.
let listeners know that it's so important that you have a relationship with yourself, a good, healthy relationship with yourself. It's important that you understand what one is. Hence, I do my podcast, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Relationships podcast, because I want the listeners not to continue to make the same mistakes as I did over and over, expecting better results. We know that doesn't work, but then we're sabotaging our lives at the same time, and we're
Right.
not giving ourselves a chance. And so I want the listeners to really think about that in your relationship right now with yourself. Do you have one? Do you have a healthy relationship with yourself? Is your self-talk healthy? Do you eat right? Do you exercise? Do you keep beating yourself up? Are you bitter on the inside, causing physical ailments? All of that has a bitter root, and you don't have to live that way.
Right.
Your life can be so much happier. And I've learned that just by going through these things that I've gone through. Abuse is never the fault of the person who is being abused. It is the choice of the abuser. It is never the person's fault who's being abused. So don't think that you did something, said something, didn't do something, didn't say something that caused this person to treat you the way that he or she is treating you. Don't believe that, because it's a choice. And it's all about power and control. So a
right.
person who wants to exert power and control over you is not someone who has your best interests at heart. Think
I
about
agree.
that. They don't love you. They may say it with their mouths, but watch their actions. Watch their actions. And then make an informed decision. Don't worry about hurting his feelings. Even if you just started a relationship and your intuition is telling you, no, something's not right. Listen to it. Your body could start responding in certain ways when you're around this person. You may begin to feel fear. That's telling you something.
Exactly. Your intuition is telling you to step back and just walk away.
Because when you're in an abusive relationship, whether you're married or not, it's not going to get better. It will not get better. It will get worse. He's not going to change. You're not going to change him. And you shouldn't want to, because that's his life. Focus on you. Focus on your kids. Focus on, I'm a caretaker for my dad. Focus on your parents. Focus on getting healthy relationships and a healthy support group. If you're in an abusive relationship, sit back and take inventory. It's not going to get better.
Right.
Make your escape plan without telling what you're planning to do.
That's a smart move. Smart move. Yes, not to tell them.
Don't tell them. Right. Don't tell them. Make your plans. There are domestic violence shelters.
Okay.
There are agencies that will help you. They will help you draw up, not even a physical draw up, but come together with an escape plan. They will give you resources that you can take advantage of. They will help you find attorneys. I'm working with someone right now, so I know that's true. The other
good. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, good.
The other thing is I went through 40-hour trainings so I can understand what is possible for victims of domestic violence. I went through the 40-hour training many times, so I was able to teach on it. There's help. You don't have to stay in this abusive relationship, but get help, but don't tell him or her what you're doing. And there's a lot of other steps you can take, like being mentally prepared before you leave. I literally have a podcast on that.
Oh, good.
And I have steps that you can take to get out of the abusive relationship. I have podcasts on that also.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh my God. What great insight. And especially the part about not telling him.
Don't tell him.
Don't tell him.
Keep your mouth closed.
And you know what? When I went to court, he was in shock. But I had a plan. And guess what? I worked with someone from the Domestic Violence Bureau.
See?
And they said, so I got up early that morning and I packed my suitcase early because I was coming up here to Saratoga Springs. I had a plan, an escape plan.
You had a plan.
I had a plan in place. And I said,
Right.
I told my attorney and the New York State Police and the sheriffs, I said, after court, I am driving to Saratoga for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
They knew exactly where I was going.
Not to tell your husband.
Right. They said, don't tell him. So after that, I just got in the car and I took off.
Right.
It's scary, but it's scary though. I mean,
I just put the podcast link in the show notes too. So
yeah,
because I did do a series on domestic violence, so they can listen to that too, because it's all informative.
I'm definitely going to listen to that. Absolutely. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay.
Interviewing you is where I looked at, there's different people and we're all at different stages in these relationships. You had the get up and go. You had determination. Just interviewing you, I found that out. You're on my podcast, like you said. But some people are so beaten down. They're so afraid. And that makes sense. They're afraid. They've been beaten down by this person mentally, physically, sexually, verbally. They've been beaten down where they're afraid to make this decision. Some of them stay, Angeline, because of finances. He wouldn't he wouldn't let them work. So let's just say Sally. He wouldn't let Sally work, or he smooth talked her in the beginning of their marriage or relationship. Oh, don't worry, I can take care of us. You don't need to work. Just stay home. Go after your goals. That changes because
Oh yeah.
He doesn't.
Big time. We're both on Spotify, so please. So the link will be in the show notes, everyone. So you go to it's Spotify for podcasters and healthy, wise,
healthy, wealthy. They can just actually go to the browser. Type in healthy, wealthy, and wise. It'll pop up.
All right, good.
Finish.
All right, good.
Then you'll see it. You'll see what I call my pearl lady. So my art, you'll notice, and I don't have it right here, but you'll notice, because there's another one too, another podcast with almost the same name, but they don't have the same thumbnail.
I see. Yeah. I see.
So
you share a lot. Boy, you were so vulnerable in sharing your story. That was raw and real.
And that's because that's a passion of mine, that you don't end up like me. And I'm not saying I'm the worst person in the world, but I went through a lot. I went through a lot of pain, and I ended up bitter, and I ended up not better until I started looking in the mirror and saying, this is not the way you want to live. And you can end up like that. And I just don't want people to, if they can see that there's hope, that you don't have to be in this abusive relationship, that once you get out, you don't have to be bitter.
Right.
But you can be a thriver, just like you. Look at you and everything you're doing.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So everyone, all the links here will be in the show notes. And actually, this podcast episode will be uploaded, God willing, Wednesday morning. I'm going to send it off to my podcast agency this evening. It'll be downloaded. So my podcast, Let's Break the Silence with Angeline, we focus on women amplifying their voices, because we all have a voice and we are no longer going to be silenced. So Yvonne, you definitely broke the silence tonight.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that when they listen to it, that they understand the sincerity behind why I opened up and shared such personal information.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. You shared a lot of but that is like a breakthrough. Like when you share your story and you're that vulnerable and that raw and real, that's where the breakthroughs happen. That's where things start to open up. And a lot of, this is what I feel that women are coming to realize, that, they have a voice now, and women are speaking out. Women are speaking out.
And don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. I was ashamed for a long time, and I felt guilt for a long time. So I didn't share, because I thought, what are people going to think of you? They're going to think something is mentally wrong with you.
Right, exactly.
Especially if you continue to do the same thing over and over again. Right. You're dating or marrying the same man with a different name, but you keep doing it. And it's all because you're not focused on finding out who you are. You don't have a healthy relationship with yourself, and you're not stopping in between these relationships to get some clarity and some love going, some self-love.
Self-love. That's right. Love on you first.
And that's not selfish. I was taught that it's selfish to
Me
focus
too.
on you. You too.
I laugh about it now. I'm just like, Mom, okay, you were not right in that case. Okay. I mean, I know.
Isn't that true?
Isn't that the truth though?
Yes.
Yes.
So I hope the listeners gain something from this, Angeline,
I
even
hope
if they
they
take a
will.
little bit away, but something that will help them.
Exactly. Exactly. Definitely. Definitely. And I'm excited that this podcast will be ready Wednesday morning. So all the links to Facebook, her Amazon books, and also everything will be at her podcast. All the links will be in the show notes.
Mhm.
Okay. Everything will be in the show notes. And also, please go ahead and like and subscribe to my podcast. We are on Let's Break the Silence with Angeline. We are on Spotify, Google, Apple, and all the live streams. And also, we're live on YouTube right now. Okay. And if you would like to subscribe to my newsletter for announcements, please go to my website at letsbreakthesilence.com, where you will receive announcements, speaking events. There's going to be a lot of great projects coming down. So please stay tuned for that. I'm really, really excited to be launching very soon it's going to be a great workshop, a 4-day workshop coming up at the end of August for domestic violence survivors. So please be on the lookout for the announcement. Okay.
Awesome.
And yes, because we want to help women. We want to empower women because, we want to empower women. So my podcast, first of all, helps them break the silence, amplify their voice, and the women who have suffered from domestic violence, I help them to step into their true calling and purpose in life and help them break down those self-limiting beliefs that have been holding them back for way too long because they have been conditioned that they're not good enough.
Yeah.
They're not good enough. So we're here to help you break down those walls. And, I focus on God too. I walk with God in everything I do every day. And yes,
Absolutely.
I'm a follower of Jesus too. So.
Amen. And he's the only way. He's the only way I made it. He's the only way that I can get up every day. He's the only way that I don't continue to fall back and beat up on myself.
Right.
Because his word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. And it truly is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Amen to that. All right, everyone. We're going to end the broadcast right now. So please be on the lookout for the episode on Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. But right now it's live on my YouTube channel. So we will say goodbye. See you on the next live broadcast. And Yvonne, thank you so much for being a guest. Please hang out in the green room for a few minutes. It was a pleasure having you on my show and great to connect again.
Yes.
And your story is going to inspire and impact so many women out there.
I'm believing that.
And I believe in that too. All right, everyone. Have a great night.